Hello, comrades. Today we will be reading um the Young Lords, a Radical History. Last time we were here, we read the Young Lords' departure to Puerto Rico and how they moved their party over there. And today we'll be reading the aftermath of that, if I remember correctly. But as always, we'll begin reading the Statement of Unity. So let me pull that up right here, screen share. There we are. All right, can y'all see this? All right, there we go. I'll begin reading the Statement of Unity preface. The U.S. was founded as a colonial settler state based upon white supremacy and slavery, stealing the lands of the indigenous nations, breaking every treaty made with them, and confining them to quote unquote reservations, concentration camps. As the country became more powerful, the ego sunk its claws into other nations, making war on Mexico and grabbing its northern territory, invading Cuba, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and the Philippines, and either annexing them outright or turning them into colonies or neo-colonies. And in the 20th century, it became the major imperialist power of the world, exploiting both the people within its boundaries and those in every other country, bullying them with military interventions, and robbing them of their right to self-determination. As Huey P. Newton stated, quote, "We have two enemies to fight, racism and capitalism. Between the two, capitalism is primary. Racism is a byproduct of capitalism. The working people of the world, of every ethnicity or nationality, face a common enemy that is destroying life on Earth. Our enemy is a small ruling class of property owners controlling most of the world's wealth and resources. We must have our basic needs met to live a good and meaningful life: food, shelter, healthcare, education, freedom from the oppression by the state, and peace with other nations. To obtain these essential things for life, we must have the power to see to it that the abundance that is available is shared equitably." Statement of Unity for the Second Rainbow Coalition. The legacy of the First Rainbow Coalition dates back to its founding on April 4th, 1969, by the original Black Panther Party, original Young Lords, and Young Patriots organization. A number of other organizations joined this coalition not too long afterwards, such as the American Indian Movement, Brown Berets, Rise Up Angry, the Red Guards, and others. Since the founding of the United States, the masses have developed a number of popular movements that came together to fight back against this capitalist imperialist system in various ways around particular demands. Nevertheless, none has established a movement quite like the First Rainbow Coalition. This historic movement was the first of its kind that established a model of class struggle like no other. Its charismatic leader, Chairman Fred Hampton of the Illinois chapter of the original Black Panther Party, stated that at the end of the day, we weren't engaged in a quote unquote race struggle. He said that's a class struggle, god damn it. By uniting with the various oppressed ethnicities and masses, they were able to bridge the gap between the various ethnic communities that white supremacy had long sought to keep divided. This class solidarity equipped them with the material basis and class consciousness as their common class condition, therefore, the necessity to form a united front against their common class oppressor, the capitalist imperialist ruling class. The ruling class viewed this as the greatest threat to their class rule, and subsequently used the entire repressive forces of the state, police, courts, jails, prisons, intelligence agencies, etc., in order to crush this emerging revolutionary socialist movement. We refounded the Rainbow Coalition on May 14th, 2021, with the intent of upholding the legacy of the original Rainbow Coalition. We believe that this historic example is the model for the United Front that will best serve our class liberation. By upholding the 10-point program of the original Black Panther Party, which was subsequently adopted and later expanded by the original Young Lords, Young Patriots Organization, and all other original Rainbow Coalition members, we establish our pragmatic unity. The 6 disciplinary rules that we uphold ties all organizations in our coalition to a common professional discipline. History has bestowed upon our generation a common class mission to fulfill. The representatives of the capitalist imperialist ruling class, represented by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, cannot liberate us. It is their class intention and interest to uphold our common class oppression. Therefore, it is only we, the oppressed masses of all ethnicities and nationalities, who must build the necessary class solidarity, class consciousness, organizational structures, and a united front that will ultimately liberate ourselves. This is what the Second Rainbow Coalition is committed to. This is the historic mission we intend to fulfill. Dare to struggle, dare to win. All members of the coalition, New African Black Panther Party, White Panther Party, Green Party of New Jersey, Poor People's Army, La Mesa Nacional de Brown Berets, Nassau, North Alabama School for Organizers, New Era Young Lords, and American Indian Movement Northeast Woodland Chapter. The 6 disciplinary rules. Number 1, members will conduct themselves in a manner that to bring credit to the coalition and will treat others with respect and politeness. Number 2, members will be sober when on Rainbow Coalition business and will not engage in any criminal activity. While a member. Number 3, no member will engage in violence except in the extremity of self-defense. Number 4, members will not gossip nor be divisive to the unity of the Second Rainbow Coalition. Number 5, members will not act as informers nor work against the purpose of the Second Rainbow Coalition. And number 6, nobody is authorized to speak for the Second Rainbow Coalition unless authorized to do so. And that is a statement of unity. Now let me pull up. Now let me just do this. Let me just pull up the thing. Come on, where is it? That's weird. Let me see. Okay, it's right up here. There we go. Come on. Ba-da-ba. Okay, there we go. Okay, it's loading. Okay, there we go. Okay. Okay, now let me just see this. Okay. Page 333. Yep, almost there. there we go. Almost there. There we go. So page 133. Okay, I'm going to now transfer. Now I'm going to transfer my thing from here to my PC. So hopefully this works. Okay. Come on. Come on, load.
It's the PC, isn't it?
Yes, it's the PC. It's it's fucking going slow, and I don't know why. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, so hopefully y'all can see this. Let me just, there we go. So switch. Okay, let's see. God,
It's being slow.
it is being slow. I don't know why. If it's being too slow, I'm gonna have to. I'm going to have to rely on you, Shanti, to screen share it.
Okay.
I really want to do it.
She pressed on the wrong thing. Gabby.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Let me just yeah, there we go. Everything looks good. Let me just connect my things to this. All right, can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh wait, give me a second. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's not connecting to my thing. I don't know why. Microphones, speakers. It's so weird. Why is it not? All right. A second.
You just want me to do it.
Sorry, what?
You just want me to do it.
There we go. All right, there we go. Now
Oh, it's working now.
what the fuck is going on? Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I think it's better to do it with you, Shanti.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what the fuck happened there. I really don't.
Okay. Let me get to it.
So page 333.
330. Okay. 300. 303. Down. What's the chapter name?
There's not a chapter name on it. It's close to chapter 10 though. Let me see again. So it's page 333. It's close to chapter 11, organizational decline.
Oh, so it's about the decline of the
Yup.
structure. That should be fun.
It will be. I'm super excited for that.
Okay. Organizational decline. Okay. Go all the way down again. 433. Okay. Okay. Let me share now. You can read up to when it ends, and then I'll take over part of the next chapter.
Right on. Let me just
Right.
see. Are you screen sharing it? There we go.
Okay.
All right, there we go. I'm going to be reading it from there. The death of Julio Rodan, however tragic, presented the young lords with the opportunity to activate hundreds of Harlem residents who supported them through a broad campaign around an issue of growing concern. The moment also presented an opportunity to challenge the growing consolidation of an emergent racist ideology that criminalized, dehumanized, and scapegoated people of color as thousands of New Yorkers were questioning the war in Vietnam, the integrity of government officials, declining wages, and the economic and political structure of U.S. society. As discussed in chapter 2, in one of the most important political moves of the decade, New York Mayor Robert Wagner recrafted for white Northern audience fearful of the riots the racially charged dictum of Law and Order, which Southern segregationists used to suppress the civil rights movement. A year later, in 1966, the New York Police Department, or NYPD, ideologically defeated the civilian complaint review board referendum. The public relations firm it hired crafting a meme for white residents, blending two historically powerful ideological strains in American history: fear of political dissent and the alleged criminal proclivities of people of color. But the fierce rebellion in New York's prisons had offered a counter narrative to the racist propaganda that New Yorkers had been fed. Among the groups of the New Left, the Young Lords had honed the most effective media presence in New York. They were positioned like no other group to launch what they might have termed a guerrilla offensive against law and order. It had the potential to push back the rebirth and consolidation of what has arguably been the most destructive and racially divisive ideology of the second half of 20th century US history. Yet, despite the organization's increased visibility and its growing ranks, approximately 1,000 members by the end of 1970, wow, it was exhibiting signs of overstretch. The achievements at Lincoln and the continued growth in membership couldn't contain the gnawing sense among some members that things were changing. The death of Rodin, who was known in the YLP as a gentle and compassionate comrade, was demoralizing. For the YLP, assertions by prison officials that Julio Rodin committed suicide were read as a government-inspired conspiracy intended to provoke fear among YLP members and break the political will of its membership. They understood that Rodin's murder was a manifestation of homicidal government repression. Since the mid-1960s, left activists had indeed been aware of how COINTELPRO worked to frustrate the movement's goals and to encourage I don't know how to pronounce that word. Internation? I don't know what that word is.
I don't know what that word is either.
Well, to encourage struggles within its organizations. Government infiltration of the Black Panther Party was the most visible example of this development. As repression intensified, radicals became increasingly pessimistic about their ability to affect change in the United States. Repression increased a sense of bitterness, cynicism, and disenchantment with the state of American democracy. Many turned their attention to the upheavals in the wider world, where revolutionary armed struggle had been in ascendance for decades. For the Young Lords, what would come next was nearly as dramatic as the group's previous 9 months of local actions. A shift from an ideology of community control to a nationalist battle against U.S. imperialism on the island of Puerto Rico, or Boricua, as it's actually called. Borican, right? Borican.
Right.
Chapter. Oh, do I read this?
Yeah.
Right on.
Chapter 11: Organizational Decline. From the moment of their emergence in New York, the Young Lords articulated a radical critique of U.S. imperial power in Puerto Rico and called for the island's independence. The matter at the time was one of political principle and propaganda, not an immediate working goal. While the Young Lords cultivated revolutionary positions on abuses of power that spanned the globe, the organization also focused on the world just outside its office doors. Its day-to-day work centered on improving living conditions for Puerto Ricans and other poor people of color in the slums of New York and raising their political consciousness. It sought to change the world by changing a few square miles within its periphery. Yet, within a year of the group's emergence, a few members of the Central Committee began to explore the possibility of expanding the organization's influence to reach onto the island of Puerto Rico itself. The first public sign of the new orientation came in August 1970 when Central Committee members Juan B. Ortiz and Juan Gonzalez traveled to Puerto Rico to take the pulse of the island's political environment. Speaking to a student-packed auditorium in Rio Piedras, Gonzalez drew on an analysis by the Students for Democratic Society, or SDS, whose 1962 Port Huron statement identifies students as major agents of social change. He linked students' subordinate position in society to Puerto Rico's colonial relationship to the United States and to the global standing of third world countries. Eager to stake a place for the Young Lords among the small number of active nationalist groups on the island during the 1960s, Gonzalez, in a rousing speech, affirmed the Young Lords Party's commitment to the struggle for Puerto Rican independence. Triumphalist in his assessment of the era's revolutionary nationalist consciousness, his speech overstated the polls favoring independence on the island. While calls for independence in the late 1960s enjoyed greater popularity than in decades past, due in part to the tenacity of the Vietnamese guerrillas who appeared to push back the all-powerful US military, island protests cohered primarily around the privatization of public utilities and strip mining in the interior of the island. And on college campuses on the island, students organized mainly against the draft and reserve officer training corps recruitment. Anti-colonial and nationalist sentiments were certainly integral to the political propaganda of these campaigns, but the independence movement in Puerto Rico remained in political disarray after having been all but destroyed by government repression during the 1940s and 1950s. Through the Movimiento Pro Independencia, or MPI, have found some success in consolidating the disparate segments of the movement for independence and connecting with the 1960s social movements on the island. Support for independence was nowhere near as strong or widespread as it might have appeared to the Young Lords Party. In fact, the group's new course would be the prelude to collapse. The move to Puerto Rico was only an abstract idea when the trip began in August 1970, but just a few weeks later, the travelers' letter from Puerto Rico depicted deplorable conditions in shanty towns near San Juan's upscale Condado neighborhood. They assured Palante readers that the area, quote, will be easy to organize. The letter implied an intent to initiate political work in Puerto Rico and graft onto the island a political perspective born of mainland conditions. The very idea suggested an outsized sense of the Young Lords' political and organizational capacity. An internal party document prepared for the cadre months later revealed that initially the committee had decided to take this step of beginning to build in Puerto Rico covertly. But upon further analysis, we understood that we had to prepare and consolidate the party for this historic event. Johanna Fernandez had political island connections and was the project's main advocate. The dynamic agitator and co-chair of the Health Revolutionary Unity Movement, she had been elected health captain of the YLP a few months earlier, which made her responsible for important labor organizing in New York's public hospitals. Though not on the Central Committee, she had the ear of one of its most important members, Juan Gonzalez. The two had met in fall of 1969 at a meeting of the East Harlem Health Council and were married less than a year later on July 25th, 1970, in a, quote, revolutionary wedding ceremony presided over by Denise Oliver and Felipe Luciano. In the summer and fall of 1970, the Young Lords underwent a series of abrupt changes that included the demotion of their chairman, Felipe Luciano, the death of Young Lord Julio Rodin in the Tombs, and the armed occupation of the First Spanish United Methodist Church. The fallout raised questions and concerns among some members and confusion and demoralization in others. An open collective discussion seemed a necessity. A December membership-wide retreat could have promised a forum where members might have articulated their thoughts and analyzed their leaders' decisions, an opportunity to build internal democracy and access organizational capacity. In the face of these traumatic developments, the Central Committee held a closed retreat for itself instead. The decision indicated that serious political evaluations of the Young Lords' direction and decision-making would be centralized in the leadership's top echelons. Despite its rhetoric to the contrary, the Central Committee was moving away from the goal of building an organization of leaders, a process for which there is no shortcut. Within the Central Committee, the argument for centralization was likely strengthened in moments of crises and by knowledge that government agents were operating in the organization. In late December 1970, the Central Committee held its private retreat. It tackled three major areas: the internal political life of the organization, contemporary politics and history, namely a contemporary assessment of consciousness and political crisis, and a run-through of Puerto Rico's history of resistance. And finally, a discussion of the classic questions in revolutionary political theory and practice. The first order of business was a review of self-evaluations prepared by each of the branches on their activities, challenges, and progress. This area also assessed progress on the issue of male chauvinism in the organization's ranks and an evaluation of racism in the party. The next major area covered mainland and island politics, a state of the Black freedom movement in the United States, and a crash course on imperialism in Puerto Rico, as well as a history of the nationalist movement that also laid out the party's plans for building in Puerto Rico. The last section of the retreat reviewed Lenin's theory of the state and outlined Mao and Lenin's position on the role of the Revolutionary Party, the development of leadership and cadre, and the application of democratic centralism. It also reviewed the contours and development by revolutionary groups of mass, quote, people's organizations. Party affiliates focused on single sector organizing, e.g., women, students, or prisoners, that do not require of participants full political agreement with the party or round-the-clock membership commitment. By the retreat's end, the Central Committee had prepared a 32-page internal document for members of the organization, summarizing its analysis of branch reports and self-evaluations. The document confirmed that the organization's formal and informal leaders were in high gear developing political sophistication through community engagement, struggling to build a disciplined party, engaging in self-criticism, and studying history and theory in their application to the world. The document also offered assessments of the broader political conjuncture and proposed direction for the next year. Sections written by Pablo Guzman and Denise Oliver addressed changes in the civil rights and Black Power movements, an indication that the organization's leaders were wedded to mainland organizing. Finally, it outlined the goal of organizing in Puerto Rico. The branch reports revealed global trends to the Central Committee. They were, quote, well done, read the document, but, quote, it could have been better if National had provided more detailed guidelines. The branches were a long way from rooting out chauvinism and passivity at all levels, from Central Committee to Friends of the Lords, or FLL. The cadre remains confused about the meaning of democratic centralism, and even the Central Committee violated it. But an educational tape produced by Pablo Guzman promised to offer clarity. Ministries were disorganized. Cadre were not being given enough responsibility. High levels of leadership were not giving enough guidance to lower levels. The organization lacked a rubric for evaluating political development of cadre and leaders. With a high point in membership of approximately 1,000 cadre in New York, Newark, Philadelphia, Boston, Hartford, and Bridgeport, the organization was struggling to integrate and cohere its component parts. The document quoted Mao on leadership to clarify the matter. Leaders work out ideas and use cadre well. Such things as drawing up plans, making decisions, and giving out orders and directives are all in the category of working out ideas. To put ideas into practice, we must weld the cadres together and encourage them to go into action. This comes into the category of using the cadre well. The challenge, Mao writes, lies in the tendency to appoint people on their merit or by favoritism. The best and honest policy is to make appointments on the basis of whether or not a cadre is resolute in carrying out the party line, keeps to party discipline, has close ties with the people, has the ability to find his bearings independently, and is active, hardworking, and unselfish. The organization's major post-retreat goal was to hone political and theoretical training through focused readings on Marxist economics and the history of Puerto Rico and the Black Liberation Movement. To this end, the general weekly branch meetings, identified as the core of democracy in the party, would have to be upgraded from their undisciplined and boring states. The new perspective proposed to put the least and most experienced members in regular conversation at branch meetings. It required attendance by all officers, lords, and LITs, or lords in training, no speaking engagement, personal problem, etc., except an extreme emergency excuse or excuses. This had to become the major site for solving problems and forum for reading. The 13-point program and platform to build the discipline and organization necessary for true democratic centralism. Better record keeping would be enforced, including daily and weekly reports from branches, officers, and individuals to help the Central Committee assess the organization and identify trends and correctives. The report gave a brief evaluation of the Second Church Offensive, noting that despite rave public reviews, internally, the Young Lords took the church at a time when we were weak, still in the midst of a setback, the demotion of Felipe. Communications between levels were terrible. Central Committee and the party were not unified. Male chauvinism was one of the worst parts of the offensive. In a situation that was, by its very nature, unwieldy, the Central Committee's brief critique of the occupation's shortcomings seemed a reflection of a struggle to assert leadership after Felipe Luciano's departure, rather than a sober portrayal of what actually happened. That the membership rallied at the church in the absence of its demoted chairman and in the context of a risky armed operation suggested that the organization had developed an internal culture and spirit that went on autopilot when fighting police, prisons, and the symbols of repressive state power in the city. The Young Lords were no longer upstarts. By the fall of 1970, a vocal layer of experienced cadre had matured, and their leadership at the church helped avert calamity. Although male bravado was surely heightened by the uncertainty and anxiety that many male members of the Young Lords may have felt, women were more prominent than ever. At least 3 women formed part of the group of 10 Young Lords assigned to defend the church in case of a police raid. And by the time of the occupation, the Central Committee included 2 women, Denise Oliver, appointed in June 1970, and Johanna Fernandez, who took Luciano's place, not his rank, in October 1970, immediately after Felipe's demotion. Having gone through such a defining event, the cadre felt entitled to a greater say in the organization's decision-making process. A growing number of members were already critical of the organization's strong emphasis on social service programs, whatever that means, but among the cadre and secondary leadership, the question of how the organization would refashion itself was up for debate. However, the Central Committee had already decided to shift the organization's political priorities away from service-oriented campaigns without convening a general discussion. Whether conscious or not, its shifting perspective was influenced by debates raging within the Black Panther Party in late 1970, which had by February led to a violent COINTELPRO-fueled internecine split. In line with the position of Black Panther Minister of Information Eldridge Cleaver, the New York Panther leadership contended that the time had come to respond to the state's violent campaign of repression against Black radicals with its own campaign of armed revolutionary counterviolence, a move, Cleaver argued, that would attract a broader base to the party and lead to the overthrow of the country's economic and political system.
Adventurism. Right
yeah,
there.
That's essentially what it was. Like, it was literally like they were not thinking. They were not thinking that when COINTELPRO happened, that was essentially when they stopped actually thinking, and it was just a free-for-all.
Indeed.
Supporters of the BPP's top leader, Huey P. Newton, opposed the position, arguing that the call for armed insurrection was premature and would lead to the loss of political allies and support from the Black American community. Newton favored broadening the BPP's community social service programs, pending the advent of revolutionary consciousness among a broad sector of the population in the United States. As the BPP's rupture worsened, the Young Lords' Central Committee analyzed the political disagreement and put forth its own perspective. To this end, David Perez reported that when the Young Lords emerged in 1969, the leadership didn't quite grasp the purpose of a revolutionary party. Now we understand that the party cannot get itself tied up in running service programs because the biggest needs of the people are its political needs. At the same time, we recognize the importance of the material needs of our people, food, clothing, shelter, and must never forget them. The objective of a revolutionary party, he wrote, was to challenge capitalism, not merely its effects, such as hunger among poor children. As Perez's assessment suggests, the Central Committee has developed a critique of volunteerism. The term refers to a tendency to substitute individual will, acts of heroism, and self-sacrifice for collective class struggle. The tendency ignores the collective organization grounded in mass social blocks necessary to significantly challenge the apparatus of power. In the 1960s context, this elevated instead moral commitments to, quote, serving the people through, for example, the various self-help programs that the Black Panthers popularized and the Young Lords adopted. Such programs do not necessarily constitute substitutes for class struggle, but in the absence of accompanying challenges to the power struggle, they alone do not disturb the balance of power in society. In the cases of those organizations, however, their Serve the People programs achieved important symbolic functions. They exposed the state, offered a compelling example of the idea of organizing society on the basis of human need rather than profit, and helped give revolutionaries a human face in their communities. Despite its break with these programs, the Central Committee's new direction proposed a close cousin of volunteerism as an alternative. In the section of the retreats report penned in Spanish by Gloria Fernandez, the CC announced that on March 21st, 1971, the Young Lords would work with the Nationalist Party of Puerto Rico to organize a demonstration to commemorate the Ponce Massacre of 1937. She added that the group would use the occasion to announce the expansion of its revolutionary program to the island, a project that it referred to as the, quote, reunification of the Puerto Rican nation. During the retreat, members of the CC voted on this new direction. Pablo Guzman, Denise Oliver, and Juan P. Ortiz opposed it. Gloria Fontanes, Juan Gonzalez, and David Perez supported it. As outlined in the CC's internal rules, it was up to the chair of the CC to break split decisions with a double vote. The chair at the time, Juan Gonzalez, voted in favor. Fontanes continued, for the people of Puerto Rico, this will be an important day. In order to achieve our goal, we will need a disciplined party with a singular focus, our national liberation. This will be the party's greatest contribution to oppressed people the world over, much like the people of Vietnam have contributed to our struggle. The cadre's reaction ran the gamut of opinion. Gilbert Colon thought it was a pretty good idea at the time, but remembers others saying it was a terrible idea. Gloria Rodriguez was opposed to the move instinctively. She continues, I felt we didn't belong there. Most of us barely spoke Spanish and we didn't know the political terrain. I remember distinctively that during my childhood trips to Puerto Rico, people used to call me La Americana. Her considerations were also personal. I grew up in New York and identified with African Americans in the civil rights movement. My roots were here. I was in a relationship and had a job. So that was a bridge beyond where I was willing to go for the party. I remember having conversations about what I would say if I was asked to go. Despite the organization's deficits, as membership had grown in leaps and bounds, the infrastructure needed reinforcement and cadre needed political training. The Young Lords also enjoyed a rich culture of debate and discussion. The atmosphere of learning and political exploration had intensified months earlier during the May 1970 retreat. Colon describes the culture. This is how it used to go down. These are the things that you should read to prepare yourself for this discussion. All kinds of discussions. And these are the two different points of view that have hit the table. Now, obviously, they hit the table at the highest level, the Central Committee, but study it, research it, and come back and talk about it. And I have to admit, that was probably the most intellectually stimulating period of my life because it was like a really good college class, but with much more significance, he continues. I think the move caught everybody by surprise, but the cadre trusted leadership and really looked up to people like Juan Gonzalez and Denise Oliver. Even though the decision to organize in Puerto Rico had already been made, members expected that an intense period of discussion would set the Young Lords' plans on the right track. Anyone else?
I like to read it unless Will here wants to read it. Comrade Will, you there?
Yes.
Hello, Comrade Will. Would you like to read the last segments of this chapter?
Yes, I will.
Right on.
Starts off at the independently.
Yeah, independently, reflecting on the working class and the divided nation.
Hey, it's going to what page?
300 until 345, I
Okay.
think.
Okay.
Oh,
Cool.
wait. Let me just check again. Yeah, 345.
All right.
All right. So, independently of the new direction, however, the Young Lords were knee-deep in building a party in East Harlem, the Bronx, Manhattan's Lower East Side, Newark, Philadelphia, and Bridgeport. In the context of a nationwide upsurge and labor strikes, some members wondered whether the Young Lords should continue to regard the lumpen proletariat as the major revolutionary force in society. Party support work for 400 striking Bronx workers, the majority Puerto Rican, sparked discussion on the power of labor. An article by Richie Perez on the Art Steel Company strike reveals some dimensions of that debate. Street and student groups have to begin to expand the concept of revolution and stereotyped thinking that says you can only be a revolutionary if you wear a beret and a field jacket and rap. A lot of now revolutionaries are judged not only by their theory but also by their thank you practice. Our striking brothers showed by their practice that they are revolutionaries committed to fighting our common enemy. They showed they understand the need to unite all our people in order to win our struggle for national liberation. Even though Perez didn't quite hit the notes of classic Marx argument, that workers are central to the revolutionary process, both because they're exploited and because of their objective social power as producers of goods and profit. He was attempting to challenge the student and lumpen base of the organization. He builds his argument on workers' support for national liberation, which he likely misassessed, overstated. On the U.S. mainland, Puerto Rican nationalism, like the Puerto Rican flag itself, was primarily symbolic. It was an emblem of the strivings of Puerto Ricans as a besieged group adjusting to a new country under the strains of racism and of their hankerings for homeland amid migrations, hardships, that Perez felt compelled to showcase the political consciousness of these workers in relation to their quote unquote commitment to national liberation, indicated a trend in organization ugh, indicated a trend in the organization. Increasingly calls for liberation calls for the liberation of Puerto Rico were becoming the litmus test of a quote unquote true revolutionary. Whether consciously or not, the organization's leaderships had long been seeking consensus on what was now its new political perspective. Thank you. Coming out of the retreat, the Young Lords leadership drafted a document titled Divided Nation Thesis, a theoretical justification for the organization's partial transplantation of the island. Screenshot that. Cullen remembers the questions it immediate. Colin remembered the questions it immediately raised. What'd you say?
Nothing.
Okay. Uh, remembers the questions it immediately raised among the cadre. It was pretty clear Puerto Rico was a nation, but what was the role of Puerto Ricans here? Can there be such a thing as a divided nation? If it was, then the YLP had obligation. Then the YLP had the obligation to actually set up a branch in Puerto Rico. To be honest with you, on paper it had an appeal. The 1/3 of a nation in exile, served from severed from the homeland by U.S. political and economic imperialism. The remaining 2/3 of the nation was in Puerto Rico. The thesis advanced the idea that regardless of its distance from Puerto Rico, the Puerto Rican community in the continental U.S. had an immutable social and cultural, historical, and political bond to Puerto Rico, even if members of the mainland community did not speak Spanish or had never visited the island. According to the Central Committee, the political states of Puerto Rico on the mainland and the island were inextricably linked. As long as Puerto Rico remained a colony of the United States, all Puerto Ricans would be treated as second citizens. Reflecting years later, Juan Gonzalez explained the logic and motivation behind the young lord's new position. It may sound strange now, but our goal was to unite the divided nation, to unite the Puerto Ricans in the U.S. with the Puerto Rican in Puerto Rico, and to spur the revolution process. We believe that the chance of developing a revolution for the independence was more likely in Puerto Rico than the U.S. The Young Lords, quote unquote, divided nation thesis, together with other documents written by members of the Central Committee in the weeks after the retreat on Marx's concepts and theories, formed the basis of their pamphlet, The Ideology of the Young Lords Party, as preluded to discussions of Puerto Rican history and class struggle, militarization, and economy, and other subjects. The document defined the major terms, including capitalism, class, the state, then I don't even know that word, contradiction, dialectics, and Afro-Boricua.
Vende,
One,
well, I was gonna say it's Vende Patria. That's what it's called.
what does that mean?
It's basically another, if I remember correctly, it's basically another term of saying gusano or reactionary, basically.
Oh, okay.
So like reactionary contradiction?
Or
Oh, no.
like as a person, a reactionary.
I heard
Okay.
like reactionaries, like those things.
Yeah.
Okay. One of its many fresh and engaging passages explained often obfuscated concepts like dialectic materialism. Okay, this might be a quote, might not be a quote, but all Puerto Ricans concerned with their people must begin to see things in a scientific way. The scientists ask, what would be the best way of getting through this problem to my goal? Question mark. And then the scientist lays out each step one by one until the goal is reached. This is the way we must lay out the revolution, using our passion, our feelings to keep us going step by step until we are free. This means that we will become dialectic materialists. What does this mean? First, take the word dialectics. Dialectics is the study of contradictions. Appreciate it. The documents analysis of the unconscious character of sexism, race, and racism, and how each manifests among Puerto Ricans and people of color are also impressive and still resonate today. Its discussion of colonized mentality, internalized inferiority and inadequacy, and senselessness conflicts among the oppressed is conflicts among the oppressed is an organic distillation of Franz Fanon's theories of the psychological fallout of colonial domination of the colonized. The 43-page primer, primer, which borrows its title from the Black Panthers pamphlet, Ideology of the Black Panthers, would come to epitomize both the young lord's great striving and the great failings. While the young lord's boots on the ground project in Puerto Rico was fueled by many sources, their perspective reflected a broader trend in the domestic movement regarding struggles elsewhere around the globe. In the early 1970s, representation exhausting and pessimism about prospects of revolution at home set a significant number of Black American activist sites on revolutionary movements in Africa, and many moved there. Dozens of members of the Black Panther Party found political sanction abroad during this period in countries like Algeria, Ghana, and Tanzania. In Ghana, they joined a wave of Black radicals who had settled there a decade earlier. Other countries in the Black freedom movement focused extensively on support work for Black independence movements in Angola, Zimbabwe, Guinea-Bissau, and the Black consciousness movement in South Africa. The focus on international events. They also fled by the persistence of racism and white reactions to the justice claims of Black Americans and other racially oppressed. The nationalist fervor created by struggles abroad and difficulties at home reinforced ideologies adapted by any radical, but reinforced ideas adapted by many radicals more than a decade earlier that radically oppressed people in the United States represented distinct nations rather than radicalized groups within the nation. Taken to its logical conclusion, the theory assumed that these groups might, if they might, ooh, taken to its logical conclusion, the theory assumed that these groups might, if they so desired, form independent nations apart from the United States. The status of Puerto Ricans occupied a special place in these debates. Puerto Ricans constituted the only radicalized group with the possibility of
Racialized.
appreciate it constituted the only racialized group with the possibility of identifying a landmass outside of the continental U.S. as their homeland. The group, quote unquote, divided nation thesis groups telescoped this possibility. Building the YLP in Puerto Rico. The nation's attempt
Oh,
to bring the organization. I don't even
oh,
know. What's up?
oh no, no, that's it. That's where we stop.
That's
Building the YLP in Puerto Rico is where we continue next time.
the bet.
Right on. So we did it. So this chapter was really amazing. First off, I want to start off by saying that I personally think it was idealistic and unscientific for the young lords to move to Puerto Rico, to move their entire party to Puerto Rico, because it was like they were abandoning, not only were they abandoning the people, the Puerto Ricans that were already in New York, the Puerto Ricans that were already in the United States, but they were also abandoning the other liberation movements of other colonized people, New Africans, Chicanos. It felt like they were abandoning the liberation movement, the United Front that was already happening in the United States, and the whole divided nation thesis. What um that whole thesis just kind of strikes me as odd because once again, Puerto Ricans are a nation. They are one singular nation. It does not matter. It does not matter if you're from Puerto Rico or if you're in the United States. Are a you are a Boricua. You are Puerto Rican.
What?
You are part of the Puerto Rican nation. It doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter if you're from Puerto Rico or if you're in the United States. You know.
Like, it doesn't matter. You're still a Boricua. You're still a Puerto Rican. Like, no matter what.
Exactly. So it just felt weird how they had that quote unquote divided nation thesis. To be honest, it kind of gave me like geological reductionist vibes. You know,
Yeah.
that's honestly what it sounded to me. It kind of sounded like if our movement is not Puerto Rico, then our movement is not a Puerto Rican movement. That's kind of like what it sounded to me, and that's just completely idealistic and unscientific. Like it does not matter where you're from. New African people are African, even if they're not in Africa. I'm Cuban, even though I'm not physically in Cuba. You know, like it doesn't matter. That doesn't erase your roots.
And I'm still African no matter what. Because like we're right across the pond from our homeland. It doesn't make me any less African. It doesn't make me any less of any groups that I may descend from because they intermix. Like it doesn't make me any less Alkebalanian. It doesn't make me any less African. I'm still African. Like nothing changes about that. The only thing that changes it, physically speaking, is where the boat stopped.
Exactly. Literally, that's all it changes. It does not matter. It does not matter who colonized you, whether or not it was the Spanish or the English or the Portuguese or the French or the Italians or whoever the fuck it was. That doesn't erase your roots. It doesn't matter. You know, so again, that whole divided nation thesis and them wanting to go back to Puerto Rico. This is the time, honestly, where the young lords started to become revisionist. I'd
Right.
say they started to betray their ideological and political line. They started to betray dialectical materialism because once again, like I said before, um, Boricuas are a nation, right? But the materialistic conditions of the Boricuas in the United States, in Chicago, in New York, and wherever have you, are going to be completely different compared to those in Puerto Rico. They're not going to be the same. So the fact that the young lords wanted to go to Puerto Rico to basically lead the revolution there, I see as idealistic because there are already revolutionary fronts in Puerto Rico. There are already liberation fronts there.
The Nationalist Party of Puerto Rico, Dr. Don Pedro Albizu Campos, may he rest in power. There were already movements going on the island itself. Why would you go from New York to your homeland? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
The intention behind it, that's what's wrong.
the attention behind it and the conditions, the material conditions at the time.
Like if I remember correctly, the majority of the young lords didn't even know Spanish. So like
no Spanish.
how the fuck are you going to how are you going to go to a nation to how are you going to go to Puerto Rico, which primarily speaks Spanish, and you don't know Spanish?
They didn't think about the political logistics of it. They didn't think it through, and that was the problem. Them moving to Puerto Rico and abandoning their unique material conditions, and the people in those conditions, I think, played a big role into why it faded, why it started to fade, because they were not ready. They were not prepared. They were not ready. They just wanted to make this big move. They wanted to be bold. If it was today, I guess they could be able to get away with that since the conditions have changed. But this was the 70s. This was the start of the 70s. This was like Puerto Rico was barely a victim of political repression by the United States government. It wouldn't have worked back then. Maybe today,
exactly,
not back then, because it was the material and political conditions were different back then.
Exactly.
Why didn't they stay in their base and try to kind of work their way towards that when the time was when the conditions were right, when the time was right, when they could be able to become principled enough to be able to maybe connect with the nationalist groups in Borican and kind of do it that way,
exactly,
but not physically fully abandoning your home base.
Exactly, not abandon the people that you already radicalized, not abandon them. Again,
yeah,
the young lords, they could have just had a chapter in Puerto Rico. They could have just had a chapter there. They didn't have to fucking move their whole ass organization there.
They didn't have to move. They did not have to move. They could have just made a chapter in Borican and had that chapter work with the independence groups on the island. Like that could have worked. I mean, today you can do that. You can do that with no problem. But back then, it didn't make sense. Today it would, but back then it didn't, because the conditions were different. And once again, they were barely going off of course, the ongoing political repression by the United States government because of McCarthyism.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work. It didn't work. And what made it worse was that, they demoted their chairman. Why
did they even do that, by the way? Because
because it was like the Lincoln takeover was in April, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And then months later, the leader of it, one of the prime leaders of that takeover, especially, is demoted. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense, and even the members were confused. But I was like, and they were like, "What is going on?" And they were trying to be dogmatic, adventurous about it, and they tried to be bold and move their entire organization to their homeland. But we already know it was not going to work for that. Like it wasn't going to work, and they didn't. They were no sano, so they weren't. I wouldn't say like they were fully disconnected from the roots, but once again, meeting the people where they're at. The majority of Puerto Rico, especially back then, they still spoke Spanish, their colonizer language.
Exactly.
These people didn't. So it was that political divide that kind of played a big role into everything, and it just didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense.
It really didn't.
It didn't make sense, and that also comes into question. Learning why it failed, why the whole thing failed, because it was doomed. It was doomed from the beginning when they demoted Felipe and wanted to be all adventurous and be bold about it.
Exactly. They took Eldridge Cleaver's stance. When that whole huge disagreement happened with Huey and Eldridge Cleaver, where Huey wanted to broaden the Black Panther Party by engaging in survival programs, where Eldridge Cleaver was basically like, fuck it. Where Eldridge Cleaver was basically like, fuck it. We need to start doing shit now, but in an unprincipled, unscientific way. Right. And it seems like the Young Lords kind of took Eldridge's side on that.
It was like they kind of collapsed under it, and once again, like, they couldn't get beyond what they did with the takeover. Because the takeover was them at their prime, but this whole move to move the organization to our homeland, that didn't work.
Exactly. Like even if they were successful in moving the entire organization to Puerto Rico, they were going to have to start at ground zero. They were going to have to start all over again. So like, why even do that?
And meet the people on the island where they are at.
Materially and psychologically.
Materially, psychologically, ideologically, because
culturally.
This is the island. This is where it all began. So meeting the island people on where they are at, they didn't do that. They just moved and thought that if they worked with these independence movements on the island, like the Nationalist Party of Puerto Rico, the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party, they thought that they could be able to strengthen the plight for Boricano independence for the island, but it didn't work that way, because it was like they went too bold too quick.
Exactly. Like I said, they should have just sent a chapter in there to work alongside the different liberation movements that were already in Borican. That's what they should have done, and they should have worked alongside the people and meet them where they were at. But instead, they were acting like they were going to lead the whole liberation in Puerto Rico without even connecting with the people of Puerto Rico.
Right. They're people, they're ancestral people, they're kin in the island. Like they skipped the whole step, conforming to the material conditions of the island, and then going in with the revolutionary work of the Young Lords themselves. But once again, it didn't happen that way. Now, if it happened today, then okay, because now there's many Puerto Rican independence collectives here that are connecting with the people on the island. Like there's many of that now, but back then you couldn't do that. So even still, the principles apply. Meeting the people where they're at depending on what their
Materials
materials
and conditions.
are.
Exactly. Like, again, regardless of where you go, the principles always remain the same, but how you apply them is going to be different because regardless of where you're at, the whole thing is to meet the people where they're at. You first have to radicalize and educate the people before anything can start. You know,
Right.
ideological and political line determines everything. If you don't have the correct ideological and political line, but you have a militant movement, that movement's going to collapse. It's going to collapse because they don't have the correct theory. They don't know how to apply principled analysis on things and how to actually make a movement. They only have
Right.
a moment.
Right. It will only be a moment, and that was a moment.
Exactly.
That was it. That was a moment.
Exactly. Not only that, but another thing that was also extremely concerning was them abandoning the survival programs. That was
Well,
very concerning to me. And them calling it volunteerism, right? Them
yeah,
fucking calling it volunteerism. Like that right there was one of the signs of them becoming revisionist. Their abandonment of intercommunalism and building grassroots movements.
That was a big misfire. I can't say that was a big mistake. Because, I mean, we're supposed to have survival programs. That's literally the whole point.
Exactly.
It's not anything inherently wrong, because that's literally the whole point of the plight for revolution is
that's how you meet the people where they're at.
Meeting the people where they're at, and the fact that they just decided all of a sudden to abandon it and declare it volunteerism or whatever the fuck that means. I don't even know where that came from.
I don't know where that came from either.
Volunteerism. How did that happen? That's how you know it doesn't make sense. Because it doesn't make sense. It's
doesn't.
like the breakfast program, the church offensive, the takeover was all volunteerism then? Out of the blue. Just completely abandon it. Just completely ignore it. Like what?
That right there is just sad. Like that right there, that's the kind of shit that COINTELPRO does. Revising and twisting what theory and praxis even are or how to implement them. That right there, making it seem like revolutionary action, actual revolutionary action is actually quote unquote unscientific. Turning survival programs into quote unquote volunteerism. That's revisionism. Right there.
What revision?
Revising it.
It's literally like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And like once again, like I don't know why. Once again, I don't even know where the hell that came from. I don't even know where the hell voluntarism came from. I never even heard of that word.
Same. I never heard of that word until
like
now. That was so random.
That was just so random to me. I was like, voluntarism. No, mind you, I never even heard of this word before. I'm like, where does this come from? All of a sudden, like it was just like, oh, we're serving the people to, oh, now we're just volunteers. What?
And again, not only that, but they said that but they said the most important thing is to meet the people where they're at politically, and to quote unquote and to not just deal with the quote unquote effects of capitalism. Like what the fuck? Like what?
No.
Like no.
I don't think that's how that works.
Like no, these aren't just effects of capitalism, quote unquote.
It's the whole system.
Exactly, it's the whole thing.
You cannot separate the system from its effects. It's all the same. I don't know why they would make that even separate. Like,
again, if you want to meet the people where they're at politically and ideologically, you have to meet them where they're at materially. Because that's how you connect with them. You
connect
meet
with
the people where they're at materially, you showing that you give a fuck about them, and you providing for the material conditions and needs. That's how the masses connect with the vanguard party, because they see, hey, these guys are providing for us. Let's hear them out, and let's engage in what they're doing. Observation, participation. That's the whole point. The moment the vanguard party earns the respect of the masses, then the masses begin to adapt the ideological and political line of the party. That's how you meet the people politically.
right. And like, once again, that was just random. Just
Exactly.
like it was just like, what? Okay. Y'all were doing great with the takeover, but now we just went to this. It was just complete 180. Like right before your eyes.
Exactly. Honestly, a large part of it seemed like there seemed to be conflict within the Central Committee because Pablo Guzman and the other people disagreed with the party going to Puerto Rico, whereas Denise Oliver, I think, and I'm terrible with names. Denise Oliver and the other people
Guang,
agreed.
yeah,
Yeah, they agreed with going to Puerto Rico. So a lot of it seemed to be that there was internal conflicts within the Central Committee,
right.
as well.
It just started to kind of fall apart. And once it, just like the Black Panther Party, they were abandoning that potential and making it, revisionist, just like the Black Panther Party abandoned their original Maoist roots.
Self-defense.
The Young Lords Party, because it broke up into two: the Young Lords organization and the Young Lords Party.
Exactly.
The party was starting to become more dogmatic, and they just wanted to not really just it just fell apart. Now with Chicago though, that was the only place of the Young Lords that I could tell from so far that stayed
They're
true.
great.
That stayed true to their own ideological lining, because once again, Chicago is the city of gangs, the city
The
of
lumpen.
the city of the lumpen, especially the lumpen, because there are
Exactly. And
poor neighborhoods here. So like the fact of the matter is that you know Cha-Cha's Young Lords and the New York Young Lords, it was like one faction of the Young Lords stayed consistent, and the other did not. And
exactly.
it was different class
Backgrounds.
backgrounds and contradictions, because the Young Lords organization was largely lumpen proletariats, and the Young Lords Party were college students. So like it was kind of like that class divide,
Elitist. Yeah.
elitist, yeah, that elitism that kind of separated it all, and the fact that Cha-Cha would not do that.
He
Cha-Cha would not.
wouldn't.
He would not do that. Fred would not do that. He like they would not do that, because once again, it's like if you ever want to know a prime example of meeting the people where they're at, go look at Chicago, because like that's literally a big prime example of you know what their conditions entailed, and working
Exactly.
through their condition. Chicago is different from New York City. New York
Exactly.
is bigger than Chicago, but there's more lumpens and proletariats close together than in NYC, and they did not accord act accordingly to their conditions. So that kind of played a big role into, it was kind of like a force when they started to split from Cha-Cha. It was kind of like a foreshadowing, I would
Of what was
say,
to come.
of what was to come. They should never have separated, because that
No,
was
they shouldn't.
literally the whole point of the Young Lords organization. It was literally to understand the primary and secondary contradictions of class, in regards to colonized people, in regards to oppressed people and exploited people, to meet them where they're at and go from there. The Young Lords Party didn't do that. They just abandoned it, like, after the takeover, and it just went haywire.
Exactly. Also, I see that we have our comrade Jorge Nieves here, also known as Che. Hey, Che, how are you?
Mad.
What's up, powerful people? Listen, the only
Che.
reason why I'm late, because in this island, they have a tendency in various parts of the island of shutting off the lights and electricity and all, and sometimes they do the internet. So I was lost up until about half an hour ago, man, when they came back after almost 5 hours.
Yeah, you're good.
Right.
You're good.
But Comrade Che, I want to ask you, with what we're discussing right now, because I believe we went over it with the last class on Friday about how the Young Lord Party went to Puerto Rico and how they transitioned there. I want to hear your thoughts on that, man. I want to hear them.
Well,
And
first of all, yeah,
then
go
we'll
ahead.
go to Will. And oh no, I was gonna say, and then we're gonna go to Will because I also want to hear what
Okay.
Will has to say. But go ahead, Che.
First of all, it was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think that they should have went. You know, they never asked us in prison. We was officially young laws in prison. They never sent us any requests, man, opinions for us to voice our opinions, etc. on that issue.
I know they
I
didn't.
would have said no because I was the chairman of the Young Law Party in prison. I was the chairman. I would have said no. I want to accept that. You know, on many grounds I won't accept it. One, because many the young laws that went to the island, most of them couldn't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
You know, and that created a
Exactly.
barrier. It created a wall between the young laws going to the island and the people on the island themselves. You know, I mean, some of them on the island speak Spanish, yeah. I mean, they speak English, yeah. All that is good and well, but the young law's purpose of going to to uh to the island was for a different reason. It was to establish the Young Law Party, and they didn't do that, man. You know, if they would have connected themselves with the Nationalist Party or develop a base in Puerto Rico, they would have been able to formulate what they wanted to. But they didn't do it like that. They went in there like Bush kids, man. You know, and it didn't work out. It just didn't work out. You know, so that's my take on that.
Right
Yeah,
on.
you were right. You were right. It was adventurous. It was dogmatic. It did not work. But now today, if they made, it would be different today if they moved, to Borican, because the conditions are, have changed a lot from then, when they decided to move. Now you have Puerto Rican liberation collectives connecting with the people and the groups on the island. That's different. This is like over 50 years ago. Like, Puerto Rico was barely coming off of, of course, the ongoing political repression by the United States government from the McCarthyism era, even though it never stopped, really.
Yeah, never stopped.
So, like, they didn't think it through. They didn't think it through, and they didn't act accordingly to the material conditions of the Boricua people on the island itself. Now, if once again, if it was, if they decided to build a, chapter in Puerto Rico, they would have done that. That would have been much easier than just taking, your entire organization to, the island. And, you have this language barrier that didn't help things either. And on top of that, deeming survival programs as now voluntarism, which was so new to me because I never heard of that word ever before. Like that was literally a complete 180.
Did y'all deal with the national question also?
What's the national question?
No, well, I mean, Friday we talk also about the national question in Puerto
Yeah.
Rico. Did y'all talk about it today also?
Not yet. We haven't talked about the national question yet. Go ahead, Shay. Start off.
You want me to talk about the national question?
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, Shay. Come on, Shay. Oh. Before that,
Okay.
Shay, though. Before that, I just remembered. Will, because
Go ahead.
I want to hear your thoughts as well.
Okay, appreciate it. My thoughts about the about pretty much what I heard so far was pretty much I'm just opinionated. I kind of dislike that the young lords chose to be like more ideological than scientific, I guess, instead of like, because I mean, for me, it makes more sense to lead from the back, especially if you don't really know like the precise way. Like if I go to a country and I don't speak the language, like for example, I'm Haitian. If I don't speak the language like very well, I'm not gonna go to Haiti and try to organize and like establish myself like very much so like this is what we got to do X, Y, Z. I would instead, like previous people who said, go there and like see who's already doing the work, who has a good understanding of the political climate, who has a good like a political ideological understanding that's more scientific. And also I feel like it is kind of interesting because like to go to Puerto Rico and to put all hands on deck in Puerto Rico isn't like inherently negative, but there are also other responsibilities that like they do have, like serving Puerto Rican communities as well as just Black brown communities in America that they've
Yeah.
like cohabitated with, like because you guys said like they're with all these different movements in America. So like I can't necessarily fault them for being like, let me go help my people, but I can be like, don't forget
Abandon.
people, like your people, like don't abandon your people. Like even though like Puerto Ricans are your people, I feel like people who struggle together are a people, the masses.
Exactly.
That's my opinion.
Right on. Like, 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 yeah. They. It's completely understandable why they want to go to Puerto Rico. And I'm not. And like I said, I'm not. I don't. I'm not against. I'm not
Right.
against the idea of the Young Lords wanting to help the liberation movement in Puerto Rico. But they shouldn't have brought their whole entire organization or tried to bring their whole entire organization in Puerto Rico. It should have just been a chapter. And B, even before they even went to Puerto Rico, they should have seen if it was feasible. They should have seen, okay, what do we need to learn? How are we going to connect with the masses there? How are we going to connect with the nationalist party in Puerto Rico and connect with them and meet the people where they're at in Puerto Rico? What are the different materials and conditions of Puerto Rico? How are we going to apply our theory, our principles in Boriken, and so on and so forth? But instead, they just went full on trying to go over there without planning out how they were going to do it.
Like not learning, like you didn't even take, like you didn't even like collectively start learning how to speak Spanish so that you can be able to meet the people on the island where they were at. There was no kind of proper planning going on. There was no other members that should have had a say so. Their opinions on this, like there like was there none of that. Like they just went full blown like 180 too quick, and I think that's what made them fall apart, was that they did not prepare to get with the Boricua people on the island. They did not even go to the island for, a while and just, see the different independence movements going on in the island, see the conditions of the island, where the people were on the island, the political conditions on the island, like all of that stuff. Like they didn't do any of that. They just went full head on and just decided to, deem their survival programs as being as being volunteerism, and all this stuff that literally came out of nowhere. So the fact that they didn't even prepare to even go to their homeland and get with the communities there and the movements and the groups going on there. The fact that they didn't even do that for at least, I would say, like at least half a year until they decided to do all this shit that they trying to do, and they thought it was gonna work, but they didn't do that, and that's what made them fall apart. They didn't prepare.
Exactly. Che.
Yeah.
Che. Now.
Yeah.
Now. Do you want to start off with a national question, Che?
Well, if you want to deal with it, I'll deal with it. You want me to deal with it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to start by simplicity. A chicken is a chicken, regardless where that chicken is. A hen is a hen, regardless of where that hen is. A dog is a dog, regardless of where that dog is. Human beings are human beings, regardless of where they're at. Boricuas are Boricuas. I don't care where you at on the planet. You're still Boricua. Now, now let me say this. We're not Puerto Ricans. We Boricuas. There's a difference. Puerto Ricans, man, is the name that was given to us by the colonizers. They call us Puerto Ricans, and change the name of the island. The island's name is Borinquen. It's not, so that's the reason why we need to understand that. Now, the national question is a divisive tool that was used by the colonists to divide us in Puerto Rico. For the second generation of people that came to this country and gave the mothers that came to this country and gave birth. I'm a second generation, which means that I was born here, but nevertheless, man, my parents come from Puerto Rico, and so when people come from the island here, they adhere to all the standards of the American system, and so they grow up believing a lot of the concepts, paying allegiance to the flag and all that other stuff. And yet, if there's a division, the only division that there is that division, that we were born here and some of us were born over there. But nevertheless, our connection still remains. We still Boricuas. The system has a tendency of dividing people, just like Africans, North American Africans, if I may say that like that. Actually they're Africans, but what they call them, American African. What is that? African
American. Yeah.
American.
Yeah. But nevertheless, they are still connected to Africa. You see, and the African people and the black people in this country, they're one nation, man. There's not two nations, one nation. The only difference that may be is that they may speak a different language. African Americans speak English, unfortunately. For those that don't speak Swahili, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they speak American. But that's the only difference between them and the African people. They're one people, one nation. And the division, the settler always attempts to divide people, man, divide our people, African Americans, but you this, you that, we got to get away from that and come to the grips who the hell we are. Not that it matters, but yes, it does matter. You know, we Marxists, Leninists, revolutionaries, nationalists, etc. But yet, we need to understand where we come from.
Right. I mean,
Exactly.
like exactly the thing. You know, especially with African people here. You know, the only difference between New Africans and Jamaicans and Boricuas and Haitians, Grenadians, etc., is where the boat stopped. That's the only difference. And even here within these borders, we have our own languages. We have the Gula language, we have AABE, we have the Tut language, which was used by enslaved indigenous Africans. You know, it's a very, very unique system in the Tut language. So, like, we have different languages. You know, it's not just, plain old English. We've made these languages as pathways to resistance, as unique to our material conditions, to when these languages started coming into form. You know, we have our own languages too. So, like, the main difference is where the boat stopped. It doesn't make us any less African. It doesn't make us any less, Taino if it's on an island where the Taino people are. You know, it doesn't matter because we have a connection to Africa, and we're still going to be connected to our homeland, the same homeland that our colonizers have kidnapped us from. We did not come as slaves, we were kidnapped. We were kidnapped. Our civilizations were destroyed, our infrastructure was destroyed, our resources became cattle, our people became cattle. Even the people that still remain on the continent, they were affected by the Ma'afa as well. Ma'afa means great disaster or terrible occurrence in the Kiswahili language, referring to the so-called slave trade. It was not a slave trade, it was human trafficking. It was genocide. That was exactly what it was. It was not no trade of cattle. It was human beings turned into cattle. My ancestors turned into cattle and kidnapped and brought into another place to replace the labor of another indigenous people that we don't even know. And even if we do know, I don't care. I don't care if we had history here in Abya, before colonization. I don't care. Because the fact of the matter is, much of our history has lied into the conditions in which our people have been in for years, especially under this system. It doesn't make us any less African. And for Boricuas, it doesn't make them any less African and Taino and Basque and other things that Boricuas are mixed with. You know, Boricuas are a multi-layered cultural group. It's not just indigenous African, it's not just Taino, not just Spaniard. It's Basque, Irish, English, German, French, and other groups that may have came to the island. So, like, we need to understand who we truly are. We're not these identities that the bourgeois system gave us. No, we are African, no matter what. We are not 20, 30, 40, 60, 90% African. We are African, period.
Yeah.
Preach.
I agree.
Exactly.
I agree.
Comrade Will, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think I have to leave. Is that okay?
Of course, that's okay, man. Of course.
Yeah, but
You're
not gonna fire, brother.
exactly, man. Exactly, man. This isn't the high school colonial education system. You can leave whenever you want, man.
Worry, it's not that.
But this isn't the school to prison pipeline. I'm so happy. Yeah.
But yeah, man. If you have to leave, you can leave. If you want to tell us they need to leave, you could say, like, in the group chat, hey, I need to leave, sorry, y'all have a good day, but you don't have to ask us, so don't worry.
All right, for sure. Well, have a good day, all of you. Stay peaceful, stay revolutionary, stay scientific.
Right on. All power to the people.
All power to the people.
Palante, peace.
Exactly. But yeah, Shanti, exactly as you were saying, I've said before, and I will say it again. It every single nation, every single culture in quote unquote Latin America has its roots in African and indigenous culture, whether it be the Caribbean, whether it be quote unquote Central America, whether it be quote unquote South America. The roots are in African and indigenous culture. For the Caribbean, in Cuba, in Borican, it's Taino and African, Taino and Yoruba, Taino and so on and so forth, you know?
Bakongo, because Bomba also has strong roots from the Bakongo people.
Yep, Bakongo.
If you actually look at the New Orleans version of Bomba, I think it's Bambula. It's Bakongo for it's Kikongo. It's in the Kikongo language for to honor and remember our ancestors. Like that's literally what it is. Bomba is a testament of resistance by Tainos and indigenous Africans, by Bakongo people, by Yoruba people, by Ibo people. I actually have a comrade from Florida who is of Mayan, Yoruba, Yoruban, Igbo, and
Taino?
Hula heritage.
Ah.
They're
Y'all
both,
talk about the bomba,
yeah,
the bomba, the dance.
yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah, that's definitely has its roots in Africa.
right.
You know,
Exactly, yeah.
the
It definitely
congas,
has.
the congas, man, the congas and the various instruments in salsa comes from Africa.
Yeah.
Exactly. Salsa, cha-cha-cha, mambo. All of these dances have their roots in African culture, in African dances, and in Taino dances as well.
It hasn't left. The only thing that has left it is, you know, physically only when we were kidnapped. But even then, those people resisted.
Exactly. They resisted. They fought back.
It came back in the form of voodoo, of hoodoo, of soul, gospel, blues, reggae, salsa, mambo, cha cha cha. Like it never left.
Never. It never left. And once again, it does not matter. It does not matter who you were colonized by. It does not matter if you are in the Anglo sphere, quote unquote, North America, or in the Latin sphere, quote unquote, Latin America. It does not matter where you are. Decolonization needs to happen all across the board. And it does not matter who you were colonized by. You are still indigenous. You are still African. You are still
right.
You are still you. Your roots don't just go away because some shitheads from Europe said otherwise. No, it doesn't go away. Your roots are still there, and decolonization needs to happen. Needs to happen all across the world, regardless of who you were colonized by, and regardless of what language you speak, whether it be English, whether it be Spanish, whether it be Portuguese, whether it be French. That does not erase your culture. That does not erase who you are.
It doesn't erase your bloodline. And, you know, there's so much damage that colonialism has done, especially on the island of Quisqueya, or modern day Haiti, and the so-called Dominican Republic. And I say so-called Dominican Republic because it largely became an agent of immense racism and pigmentocracy on that side of the island. And I have books on my book list talking about that. You know, the so-called mulatto complex, the mestizo complex that still affects the so-called Dominicans to this day. If you've seen in the Parsley Massacre, you know, that is a clear-cut example of the immense violence of Spaniard colonialism on that island specifically. And even in Boriken, they're still facing, there's still institutional racism on the island, because of the Spaniards. So, they may be unique, unique conditions, but the system is still the same.
Exactly.
Users. So, like, that's what we need to also put into account, is that, racism, is a byproduct of capitalism. So they rely on these people to denounce their African roots, to deny their Taino roots, to be with the bourgeois system, to give those people a fighting chance. And there are now more political dissent between Haiti and the DR again. It never stopped with the border shit, because once again, Quisqueya never had a border. They never had a border until the Spaniards came. They put it there.
Yeah.
They put it there.
Well,
So
also remember, there was a dictatorship on the island as well, and that
Trujillo,
dictator, I forgot his name.
Trujillo,
I forgot his name, but anyway, he was one of the first ones that enforced, the light-skinned Dominicans to talk bad about the dark-skinned Dominicans. And that became what Brother Malcolm X talked about, the house Negro and the field Negro. I don't want to say the other word. The house Negro and the field Negro. It's the same situation here. The house Negro here, man, is light skin is the light skinned Dominicans, man, who refuse to acknowledge the fact that they're black.
right,
They may be real black, man, but yet they don't call themselves black. They'll call themselves something else. I don't know what, man, because I'm dealing with that with my granddaughters. My granddaughters over here, they dark skinned, man. I'm telling them what they are.
right.
Just the other day I was talking to one of my granddaughters, and she said, "I'm not black." So I proved it to her. I proved it to her that she was black, And then she started talking about, well, I'm not black like the Haitians. You see what I'm saying? It's the
Right.
same.
It's the
That
same.
indoctrination.
It's the
That
same.
indoctrination.
It's the same system. It's like deeply ingrained on that.
Psychologically.
It's psychological genocide. Those people don't know who the hell they are, and they're going off on the same people that helped free them too. Because much of Haiti are dark skinned people, dark skinned Africans. So that pigmentocratic part is also a big part in it as well. That very pigmentocratic, racialist, institutional classism, that racism that still runs rampant on that island. And also I know the dictator's name, Trujillo. Trujillo. If you know about Trujillo, you will know that he
Yeah,
was.
Trujillo, right. You're right. Yeah, that's it. That was the dictator.
Yeah,
Trujillo, man. He slaughtered a lot of Haitians.
he
Slaughtered
did.
them.
Mm-hmm. You
The
did.
Parsi massacre. The Parsi massacre. Like he was like he had such hatred against his roots. He had such hatred against his roots so bad that he called Haitians as a threat to the society that doesn't even exist, that only is a extension of imperialism and colonialism on in the Caribbean, and like to have such searing hatred against your African roots so bad that you would kill 35,000 African Haitians in a matter of a week because you see Haitians as a supposed threat, even though they helped the so-called Dominican Republic become free as well. And then immediately you turn the so-called Dominicans against the Haitians, against the new free nation, and it literally went downhill from there. And you can tell
Exactly.
You can tell what they did. The spirit of the Spaniard colonizers are still there. They are still there. It's that bad. It is that bad. African people that have such fabricated hatred against their own identity that they don't know who the hell they are. You know, the saying, I know black, I'm Dominican, like making it a monolithic identity that only exists under a class system, an identity that only exists under a class system, denouncing their African roots. This is literally mestizaje all over again.
Exactly. And the term mulatto
Yeah,
itself, the term
mulatto,
mulatto, sorry.
mulatto, mestizo, that racial hierarchy that they've made.
Exactly, that pigmentocracy of pinning light skinned African people against dark skinned African people. It's fucking disgusting and abhorrent as fuck. The term mulatto itself literally means, if I remember correctly, mule. Literally. That's what the fucking term means, if I remember correctly, mule.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how serious it is. But a lot of people don't know that. And so many people here within these borders have such a distorted sense of understanding race and class together that they think that that these people are way different than us here, the so-called foundational Black American, you know, the American descendant of slavery, you know, the ethno-fascist crowd, you know, the Israelites, that crowd. And they it's like such dissent and such division and such hatred that they don't even see themselves as African. They don't see themselves as African. They only see themselves as mixed, but not African and or native. Not that, because it's uplifting your colonizer blood. That's where La Raza Cosmica came from. It's a Nazi ideology. It's a Nazi shit show. Because the man that made it was heavily influenced by Hitler.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah.
Say that again. The guy who made what? Sorry.
La Raza Cosmica, La Raza.
Ah, okay.
Like the race, like the cosmic race. You can tell it has Nazi influence in it. So
Oh no, yeah.
that's also a big part of decolonizing, is letting go of these concepts that serves as extensions of colonialism and neocolonialism and imperialism and capitalism, especially
And white supremacy.
and white supremacy, especially in the global south, in the third world, because you see a lot of this play out. If you actually go to the island of Quisqueya, you will see just how bad it is, institutionally speaking. So many self-hating African people, so many self-hating Taino people, because there's still Taino people on the island, even on the Haitian side. But you know, once again, they made it seem like, you know, the Tainos are gone and, you know, they disappeared and whatever. You know,
They're extinct, quote unquote.
a paper genocide, essentially, a paper genocided people. And you know, that's also another aspect of decolonizing as well. You cannot organize without decolonization.
Exactly. You can't.
Without decolonization,
Psychologically and materially.
Psychologically and materially, decolonization is it's literally a non-negotiable. It's decolonizing what you have been taught, decolonizing the hatred that you have against yourself and your people, decolonizing your mind, decolonizing your spirit, decolonizing everything that you have been taught by this system to believe about your people, your culture, your history, your destiny, and yourself. And that's what these people need.
Exactly.
But you cannot separate it. You cannot separate. These are not separate things that happen to have intersecting qualities with each other. No, it's the same system. It all comes under the same system. Race, gender, disability, all that stuff. It's all under the same system. And
it all
that
derives from it.
It derives from it. And that is also what plays into the young lords boldly moving to Puerto Rico without understanding the conditions of their people on their, their kin on the island. Like they did, like once again, they jumped too quick without actually truly understanding the political conditions unique to the island, not New York. They didn't organize their ideology well enough to be able to connect with their kin back home, to connect with their kin back home on the island as unique to their conditions. You know what I'm saying? Especially like the whole quote unquote stateside Puerto Rican. There's no such thing as a stateside Boricua. There's no such thing as a stateside Boricua. You're Boricua and that's it.
Exactly. There is a thing.
They make it seem like Puerto Rico is actually a part of this empire when it's not. It's only a prostitute to this empire because
exactly
it's literally colonized again by the U.S. after the Spanish-American War. So,
literally,
yes,
not a legitimate part of this empire. It's a prostitute to this empire.
It's a colony
to this empire. It's a colony to this empire. Unincorporated territory, my ass. Unincorporated.
Exactly.
That they're planning on making it just another official part of its empire, just like they did Hawaii, just like they did Guam, Alaska, Samoa. It's called unincorporated for a reason, because they are making it their mission to incorporate a Taino island as part of as one of the leading imperialist empires today.
American, quote unquote. They want to make them American. That's what they want to do.
Right.
They want to assimilate them. Not only that, but also going back to the young lords trying to transfer to Puerto Rico. Another thing that they did not acknowledge is the fact that the young lords within New York, a lot of them were already coming to the conclusion and accepting their African roots. They were coming to accept that their culture and their identity was both Taino and African. But they didn't consider the fact that in Puerto Rico, there was a different case. That in Puerto Rico, due to being psychologically colonized, due to giving a bourgeois white supremacist analysis, a lot of people in Puerto Rico, both in that time and now, don't acknowledge that they're African, don't acknowledge their African roots and culture, and they didn't consider that as well. Right, they didn't consider how they were going to. Oh, sorry.
They didn't consider that, and also, they, a lot of people make it seem like Puerto Ricans are culture vultures and all this colonialist bullshit, which is literally a lie. It is a lie. I need everyone to understand that is a bold-faced lie. They are not culture vultures. They are.
What's the term even mean?
A culture vulture literally means that they're co-opting African culture.
Oh yeah, fuck that shit.
Trying to make it seem like it's theirs. Making it seem like just because of what they look like, that they're not African, so they cannot be able to practice their roots and acknowledge their roots, because it's all about what you look like. All this racialist bullshit that a lot of us here within these borders say, which is definitely not true. It's Taino, African, Spaniard, Berber, Irish, English, German, French, but largely it's strongly Taino and African. So there's no culture vulture shit going on. It's already there.
Exactly. It was already there when the Spaniards colonized and kidnapped indigenous Africans and brought them to Puerto Rican. It was
Right.
already there from the beginning. Same
It
thing
was-
with Cuba. Same thing with the entirety of the Caribbean, and same thing with quote unquote South America. It was already there. They didn't. They Puerto Ricans. Boricuas didn't just one day say, you know what, fuck yeah, I'm African. You know, no, it was
No,
already there.
it was already there, and that's the history that we don't even know because they once again they make this illusion that these people, these so-called non-black people, seemingly inherently have more privilege than a so-called fully black person, which is not the case at all. They
It's
make
bullshit.
make it seem like these people that are given biological markers based on how socially and politically and economically exploitable the bourgeoisie wants to make you to be. They make it seem like that they are living lavish and like they have more of a upper hand in the social ladder than the so-called ambiguous blacks, and that's not even the case because you're not seeing things from a scientific way. You're only seeing it because of okay, you see a person with curly hair and light skin and ambiguous features, and you think you can make an analysis of it. No, you cannot,
You can't.
because it's understanding why do they have privilege, because you have to understand privilege is a timetable. Privilege has a timetable. So the moment that you're no longer exploitable by the bourgeoisie, then you're treated just like everyone else. Just like here in Chicago, when Scottish and Irish Appalachian immigrants, migrants started coming up to Chicago, to Uptown, Hillbilly Heaven, they were treated just like new Africans in Chicago. They were treated the exact same way, just like everyone else. The same class belief that the city thought about them was exactly the same way they thought about us when we started coming up. Even though the city had its first permanent resident, um, uh, uh, John Point Dusabo, John Baptiste Point Dusabo, who's Haitian. So like it's like a whole system of class warfare, mind you. High Thurman, when he came up, I think Daley was still mayor, and Daley was Irish. So that shows you the violence of being annihilated from your identity, from your roots, and having people think that because of what you look like, they think that it's essentially is biological essentialism. They are biological essentialists. They think that because of what you look like, then that determines what your culture is, and that is not true. I'm so
It's
sorry.
reductionism. It's biological reductionism.
Reductionism, and
Yeah.
look, I admit it. I've had that complex in the beginning when the uprisings happened. I thought, I didn't know better. I didn't understand the complexities of it until I got with the new African independence movement back in January. That was when I really started to see, where I realized that biological reductionism is a divide and conquer tactic
Of the bourgeois.
of the bourgeois. Yeah.
Like 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 if you were to look at me today, right? If you were to look at me today, you'd probably not guess that I'm Cuban. You'd think that you because I've had people I've had people say that they thought that I was just born here and I'm quote unquote American, but no, I'm Cuban. Cuban culture, I have Cuban culture, you
Right.
know. So fuck that biological reductionist bullshit. It doesn't say anything about the person's culture, the person's supposed
Right.
privilege, and that's what they use in pigmentocracy. That's what they use. They fucking they divide African people based on
In color.
based on exactly based because one has a slightly less a slightly less darker complexion than another, and because of that they must not be African, quote unquote, and that they must have more culture than their darker complexion counterparts. Like that right there, that's bullshit right there. That's white supremacist is fucking bullshit, and that's what they've used, and that's what they used to turn Dominican people against their Haitian kin, against their own people, by making them think that they were, quote unquote, different, by making them think that their enemy wasn't the colonizer but the Haitians.
The dark-skinned people were the enemy, according to the bourgeois class as unique to that island. And even going back to biological essentialism, as Kwame Ture said, if you blame the if you make an analysis talking about the oppressed without mentioning the oppressor, you're blaming the oppressed for all their problems.
Exactly.
And that's essentially the thing here, is that especially with biological reductionism, separating the so-called blacks from the so-called non-blacks, even though those so-called non-blacks are of African heritage as well, they think that because of what you look like, that inherently it places you on this social, political, economic ladder where you just have all the privileges in the world, and that's not the case.
That's bullshit.
Not the case at all. Even within as we've seen in the past 3 years, that divide and conquer tactic, that binary, be used amongst young people, our generation, to as if it's something progressive. No, it's not. It's not progressive. It's not revolutionary, because
it's degressive.
Like you praise Fred Hampton, but you're reinforcing that bullshit binary. Did you actually listen to what Fred Hampton said about that?
Exactly. Did you even hear what he fucking said about that shit? Like,
that's how you know that they're like they're screwed ideologically, because once again, we have such a construed understanding of race and class here within this empire that we're not seeing things from a dialectical, materialist, scientific way, from a perspective of that. We're not understanding the why. Why do so-called biracials have a seemingly upper hand than the so-called unambiguous dark-skinned Africans? Why is that? It's the why that we're not confronting. And even if we do read this history, we still think that, look, the so-called biracials, do they, play a role in, pigmentocracy, interpersonal pigmentocracy against dark-skinned people? Yes, they do. But you have to understand the class contradictions when it comes to that. If we're not talking about class, you're making no analysis. You're only going off what your eyes see.
Exactly.
You cannot go off what your eyes see.
Yes, Camache?
Yeah, let me say something real quick. When the young laws, most of the young laws that decided to go to Puerto Rico, today, they're all renegades.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're all renegades. Chiruba Guzman, he's in some shelter, man. I think he bugged out. Juan Gonzalez, he moved to New Jersey or Chicago. He went to Chicago. He's a journalist, and he has I mean, I hear his speeches sometimes, and I just wonder, man, where the hell is he coming from? You know,
Right.
and the other one, Gloria Fontanes, she's also a traitor. You know, so there's a lot of traitors that in that particular era, you know, were the ones that were pushing for the Young Law Party to go to Puerto Rico and organize, you know.
Right.
Now, I just want to mention one thing. We were, let me see how I say this. We were Americanized in 1917 to prepare us for the World War II. You
Yeah.
know, and they needed as much armed forces as possible. So they dragged us into they forced us. They made us American citizens. You know, without even asking us whether we agreed to it or not. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so the Puerto Ricans the Boricuas over there on the island, as well as the Boricuas over here on this hell. You know, we all colonized. We are colonized people. You know, and a lot of the Boricuas have come a long way because they're not as racist as they used to be. You know, pertaining to the darker skinned Puerto Ricans or Boricuas. You know, today they don't, you know, I mean, racism still exists, but not as much as it used to. You know, today Boricuas are more alert. You know, and that's because of young laws. That's because of various other parties that are working on the island.
Yeah.
Right on.
That's extremely important. There's still racism on the island, obviously, but it has come a long way with really understanding the complexities of it, especially in regards to African people. Because they've had uh, uh, very, very blatantly pigmentocratic ideas promoted to Boricuas on the island. That if you marry a light skin, Puerto Rican, your life will be better. Like that's the ideas that they have heavily promoted. And of course, back then, those people at that time, they felt, victim to that. And it's it's a whole nuance you know issue, but they have come a long way. They have come a long way. It's still racism that still needs to be combated, but they have come a long way with having a more better understanding of the complexities of identity.
Yeah.
And I think that's the very, very important thing. It's like that's what decolonization is. It's to better understand the complexities of it,
Of class
not,
struggle.
not based on what your eye.
You can see it in the musicians itself, man. You got some black Puerto Rican, black Boricuas hooked up with the light skinned Boricuas, and they're all playing, doing they're musicians, etc. The unification, that's the music unified us. That's what
Right.
that's one of the biggest
That's cultural
impacts.
revolution. That right
That's
there, that's cultural revolution.
bomba, bomba. Like bomba is a big aspect of uh Boricano culture. Like you cannot mention Borican without bomba, because
Yeah,
bomba was a big big creation on the island, like literally the oldest uh music within the so-called Puerto Rican stratosphere. uh you know it's a big, big aspect of the African and Taino roots of the island. And uh a lot of people like to underestimate it. They don't want to uh confront the class complexities of it, because once again they think that your identity is based on what your biological features say, and that is not the case, because bomba is uh celebrated by the Afro-Taino Boricuas on the island. And, it's a big aspect of the culture, of the heritage, of the history, of their destiny. So you cannot separate it because, you just can't. And not only that, they mention a lot about the pigmentocratic aspects, especially, back then, with salsa, salsa also came a long way, in terms of who is the faces of it. Because, Celia Cruz from Cuba, was, darker skinned. And she became a big, big fixture. So that shows the complexities of culture and identity. It's not just, the so-called ambiguous light skin Puerto Rican. No, it's dark skin, it's brown skin, it's light skin, it's literally all the skins.
Exactly. It's your roots.
It's your roots. It's the roots that really matter. And a lot of people understand
Fuck
that.
the appearances. Fuck the appearances. Fuck what you look like. What matters is your roots. You could be again. We again. We literally see this. We literally see this where indigenous people in Turtle Island who are more up north have a lighter skin complexion than indigenous people who are more down south. Does that make them any less indigenous? No, of course not. It does not. It doesn't make them any less indigenous. And in Africa, you see this as well, where people in northern Africa have a slightly less darker complexion than people who are closer to the equator. Does that make them any less African? No, it doesn't.
Yeah, and Boricuas also have Ameze blood as well, including Guanche heritage, which is essentially the same people. It's more than just a particular part of Africa. It's also the northern part of our homeland that Boricuas also have heritage from, and there are Boricuas that celebrate that heritage too. It's so complex and so layered. It's not based on what you look like. That is literally
that's bullshit.
Scratching the whole surface.
It's class related. It all goes back to class. Everything goes back to class. It all goes back to one word: profit. That's what it comes back to.
Imagine if they thought about that instead of trying to make Puerto Ricans out to be the problem. Try to make the problem. Trying to blame them for everything. But I mean, our oppressors are still doing that to them.
Exactly. To this very day.
It's not the illegals. It's not the Haitians. It's not the Boricuas. It's the bourgeois system that makes it seem like that they have a upper hand than us.
When they don't.
The people. They just make that illusion. That's literally the whole point.
Exactly.
Same oppressor. We're under the same system. Does that make any more sense? Imagine if they understood that instead of trying to blame somebody else and trying to blame another oppressed people for our problems. Even though we have problems. Come on.
Exactly. That's what I'm fucking saying. And that's what they want. That's what the bourgeois do. They give bullshit lies. They get a different whitewashed bourgeois propaganda to these different colonized groups, making it seem like their enemy is each other. They want to instill a bourgeois and reactionary lens among everyone, especially colonized people, to destroy them from within, to make them internally hate themselves and their other fellow colonized people, and to instill in them this idea that the reason why they are facing this oppression is because of other colonized people. Oh, it's the quote unquote illegals fault. It's the Boricuas fault. It's the new Africans fault.
It's
Trying to
children.
pin them against one another, all to maximize profit, all to uphold the contradictions of capitalism. That's what it's all about. It's about profit, money. That's what it's always about. That
And,
is the end all be all.
It's the end all be all. Like, blaming children as well. Like, we're the problem. They didn't even want us, and they used to be children. That's that. Like, see, that's the thing. That is the thing. They see us as cattle. They see their own children as cattle, especially as we've seen in the past 3 years here with COVID. They did not want to see them children anyway. They did not care about them. They don't give a damn about those kids. They don't give a damn about those kids. The teachers didn't, many teachers don't care about those kids. The staff doesn't care about those kids, and their damn parents don't care about those kids. They just want their precious bourgeois bigger boss to declare the pandemic to be over, even though it's literally it's definitely clear that it's not over. They just wanted a bourgeois person to say, well, it's over, you can send your children back to school, and they can be vomiting all over the place now, and become disabled, and all this shit, and send them back to school so they don't have to deal with them. That's literally the thing. That's literally
especially now, kids like Gen Alpha is the first generation ever that is being solely raised by the internet, basically, because their parents don't give a fuck about them. And what do? They leave them for the internet to just mindlessly fucking watch and engage in Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. And these fascist bastards are taking advantage of that. That's what they're doing. They're taking advantage of that shit. Also, I just want to add that we've been on for a bit long, and that's probably best to end it here.
Yeah. I think
want to add that.
I think we pretty much said what we needed to say.
Yeah, we pretty much said everything we need to say. Thank you, everyone, for coming here. Thank you, anyone who will be viewing this in the future. Y'all are amazing. Y'all are awesome. And as always, all power to the people. Also, Shanti, I think after I accidentally left, got kicked out, you became the host, so you're the one that's got to end the recording.
Okay. Okay.
Just press recording, and it should give you the option to stop.
Yeah, I see it. As always, all power to the people.
All power to the people.